A very different sort of chaos than that in King's Landing reigned in the smoky ruin that was once Tumbleton. Whilst King's Landing fell into terror, the foe they feared yet to advance a foot towards the city, for King Aegon's loyalists found themselves leaderless, beset by division, conflict, and doubt. Ormond Hightower lay dead, along with his cousin, Sir Bryden, the foremost knight of Old Town. His sons remained back at the Hightower 1,000 leagues away, and were green boys beside. And while Lord Ormond had dubbed Daeron Targaryen, Daeron the Daring, and praised his courage in battle, the prince too was still a boy, the youngest of Queen Alicent's sons. He had grown up in the shadow of his elder brothers, and was more used to following commands than giving them. The most senior Hightower remaining with the host was Sir Hobbit, another of Lord Ormond's cousins. Before this point was only entrusted with the baggage train, a man as stout as he was slow. Hobbit Hightower had lived 60 years without distinguishing himself, yet now he presumed to take command of the host by right of kinship to Queen Alicent. Lord Unwin Peake, Sir John Roxton the Bold, and Lord Owen Borney stepped forward as well. Lord Peake could boast descent from a long line of famous warriors, and had 100 knights and 900 men-at-arms beneath his banner. John Roxton was as feared for his black temper as for his black blade, the Valyrian steel sword called Orphan Maker. Lord Owen, the betrayer, insisted that his cunning had won the battle at Tumbleton, that only he could take King's Landing. None of the claimants was powerful or respected enough to curb the bloodlust that had taken hold in the common soldiers. Whilst they squabbled over precedence and plunder, their own men joined freely in the massive looting and destruction. The horrors of those days cannot be gainsaid. Seldom had any town in the history of the Seven Kingdoms been subject to as long or as cruel as a savage sack as Tumbleton after the treason. Without a strong lord to restrain them, even good men can turn to beasts. So was it here. Bands of soldiers wandered drunkenly through the streets, robbing every home and shop, and slaying any man who tried to stay their hand. Every woman was fair prey to their lust, even crones and young girls. Wealthy men were tortured to death to force them to reveal where their hidden treasures lie. Babes were torn from their mother's arms and impaled upon the points of spears. Holy scepters were chased naked through the streets, not by one man, but by hundreds. The Silent Sisters did not escape this barbarity either. Even the dead were not spared. Instead of being given honourable burials, their corpses were left to rot, fodder for the crows and wild dogs. Septon Eustace and Grand Maester Munkin both assert that Prince Daeron was sickened by all he saw and commanded Sir Hobbit Hightower to put a stop to it. But Hightower's efforts proved as ineffectual as the man himself. It is the nature of the small folk to follow where their lords lead, and Lord Ormond Hightower, would-be successors, had themselves fallen victim to bloodlust and pride. John Roxton became enamoured of the beautiful Lady Charisse Footley, the wife of the Lord of Templeton, and claimed her as his prize of war. When her lord husband protested, Sir John cut him nigh in two with Orphan Maker, saying she could make 2 widows now, as he tore the gown from the weeping Lady Charisse. Only 2 days later, Lord Peake and Lord Botley argued bitterly at the War Council, until Peake drew his dagger and stabbed Botley through the eye, declaring once a turncloak, ever a turncloak, as Prince Daeron and Sir Hobbit looked on, horror-struck. Yet the worst crimes were those committed by the 2 betrayers, the base-born dragon riders Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White. Sir Ulf gave himself over entirely to drunkenness, drowning himself in wine and flesh. Mushroom says he forced himself on 3 maidens every night. Those who failed to please were fed to his dragon. The knighthood that Queen Rhaenyra had conferred on him did not suffice, nor was he sufficed when Prince Daeron named him Lord of Bitterbridge. White had a greater prize in mind. He desired no less of a seat than Highgarden, declaring the Tyrells had played no part in the Civil War, and therefore should be attainted as traitors. Sir Ulf's ambitions must be accounted modest when compared to those of his fellow turncloak, Hugh Hammer. The son of a common blacksmith, Hammer was a huge man with hands so strong that it was said he was able to twist steel bars. Though largely untrained in the art of war, his size and strength made him a fearsome foe. His weapon of choice was the warhammer, with which he delivered crushing, killing blows. In battle he rode Vermithor, once the mount of the old King Jaehaerys himself. Of all the dragons in Westeros, only Vhagar was older or larger. For those reasons, Lord Hammer, as he now styled himself, began to dream of crowns. Why be a lord when you can be a king? He told the men who began to gather round him, and talk was heard in 100 herding camps of a prophecy of ancient days that said, when the hammer shall fall upon the dragon, a new king shall rise, and none shall stand before him. Whence these words came remains a mystery, though not from Hammer himself, who could neither read nor write, but within a few days every man at Tumbleton heard them.